Want to stay informed, get educated, and feel empowered? Stay tuned where information is power.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
This has been EDDIE-FICATION, made possible by the efforts of the Center for Democracy and Good Governance, CDGG. The Center for Democracy and Good Governance is a sound organization established to promote and strengthen democracy.
I want the best for my family, so every meal has to be perfect. Every bite has to say, There's no doubt in my mind that the best in frozen meats and vegetables has to come from the Country Cold Store. Hams, turkeys, sausages, beef, pork, chicken. I just don't know my family is in safe hands. Thank you, Country Cold Store, for being there for us for the past 40 years.
There are some interesting specials available at Country Cold Store's Mini Mart while stocks last. Take advantage of these specials as they assist you to stretch your limited funds.
The Country Cold Store, providing the best in frozen meats and vegetables since 1969.
Need a personal integrity booster shot? Your prescription is right here. Tune in with Eddie Frederick every week. Information is power.
Attention all forward-thinking companies. Sure, you can do with a continuous positive boost to your image and impact your bottom line. If you think training is expensive, try not training, and you will experience a perpetual downward spiral in patronage on account of increased dissatisfied customers. Take things into your hands and engage the best at motivation and customer care training with a tried and tested track record. Visit www.efrederick.com now and learn how you can change the atmosphere in your business and improve the customer experience for everyone who does business with you. Spice Island Beach Resort and Belmont Estate are two such local entities of world renown that have benefited tremendously from ongoing customer care, social skills, and motivation training. Training changes everything for the better for any business and every team member. Enhance employee performance through increased awareness and passion for the job at hand. Greater potential in your workforce awaits you through engaged, high-energy training that works. Log on now, www.efrederick.com.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
right, folks. Good morning. Good afternoon, rather. Wow. One I'm on rewind, it seems. Anyhow, good afternoon and welcome to Edification 261. As we continue to navigate choppy waters in these very trying times for the world, and more especially our neck of the woods, where we are extremely dependent, in spite of many of our states having gained independence from the colonizers. You see, our so-called politicians over the years behaved like, as I think it's Brandon Lewis who coined this, branch managers for colonialism and imperialism, while pandering to the masses. Their behavior ensured the continued, dependency syndrome, so that, we cannot escape being part of the dominated masses. You see, their behavior ensured that this thing continued, that our people remain naked and consistently starved of education and awareness. Two qualities, if our people were introduced to in all of their lives, could have led them to a better standard of living and quality of life. Today we are reaping what we all sowed, and having to fight up behind economic powers who are now calling the shots in loud and vicarious ways, much to our peril. The same neglectful manner in which the people were taught to behave while these said visionless branch managers were making manger papote with the people's affairs. That mindlessness is so ingrained today that these said unthinking masses in the main continue to blame succeeding administrations for everything that caused them to be reaping the load of nothing that they're being prepared for to receive by their choice of leaders who are no longer around the precincts of power. And that is why I always will say hashtag, you could finish it for me, folks, but you know where I'm going. Hashtag Keith gone and he not coming back. And we have to make sure, folks, that happens. Because if that doesn't happen, dog eat your supper, crap or smoke your pipe, because it is retrogression all the way back to the dark old Stone Age. You will never stand a chance of really experiencing what the 21st century truly has. You see, as soon as you come into the room today, I want you to remember to share. Don't be shy to share, folks. Comment, like, love. Hey, tag friends that you find you're missing all for now, because some of them could do with a reminder. And just interact as you usually do. Let me just share with you our angel number for today, folks. It's 261. The number 2, of course, in numerology represents harmony and balance. Meaning, while of course, the number 6 signifies love, care, and nurturing. While number 1, of course, is associated with new beginnings, self-leadership, and ambition. Therefore, combining these digits, angel number 261 is all about finding harmony and balance in your relationships while pursuing new beginnings with self-leadership and, of course, ambition. Once you can do this, you would find it hard to be bored and without purpose, as you will always be working on something that can bring growth and genuine development to you. Our topic for today's discourse: fear of exclusion breeds desperation. And it comes hard at the heels of last week's, which had loads of people talking after I was finished. The reminder: when one is driven by status, massive pressure results from status starvation. You see how they're related? Fear of exclusion breeds depression. Folks, great things are happening in Grenada as a testament to how much there is greatness in every one of us as Grenadians. We are bound to rise after so many years of nastiness that has stymied our true north development as a people, wanting better for ourselves, of course. You see, the poor governance over the period 95 to 22, for the most part, is wholly responsible for the mangled society we live in today. What a terrible and decrepit legacy for Satan's grandson. You see, 2 days ago, we all witnessed the lavish commissioning ceremonies of the spanking new police headquarters on the Carrawnage in the heart of downtown St. George's. Could you imagine monies were allocated for the relocation of this said police headquarters and the repurposing of historic Fort George into a tourism enhancement project by a grant from international sources, every cent of which, of course, had to be accounted for? This was around 8 years ago, and absolutely nothing was done to access the monies. You see, monies that were tied to accountability was never attractive to the administration that was known to have many sticky fingers among its ranks. You see, the Deacon Mitchell administration was elected to office nearly 3 years ago, and in a short space of time was able to rescue the donors' multi-million-dollar sums, which were about to be rescinded due to poor to no implementation. As a result, Fort George is being restored and readied for repurposing as a major tourism attraction, which its rich history will be made available to the general public and, of course, our visitors alike. It is because of the seriousness of this administration, this Deacon Mitchell-led administration, whose members have absolutely no interest in siphoning the public's purse and prepared to account for every cent of the donors' funds, that we are able to boast of the final relocation of the police headquarters to the Carrawnage in this wonderful eye candy of a building where local contractors worked tirelessly to complete, which climaxed in their relocation and official commissioning on Friday last. Folks, a lot of work went into that. The Attorney General's chambers were very busy doing what? Making sure the government could properly acquire that cable and wireless building on the Carrawnage. The contractors did all their preliminary work to make sure that when they hit the road, and the rubber hits the road, it hits the road with purpose. Of course, they met a lot of snarls in the process, because it was a building that nobody was familiar with, really. So when you move this and you move that, you start discovering other things that need attending to. And that is why it was an overextended period of time that they were able to deliver. But they delivered. And boy, what a spanking, beautiful building that the police, our Royal Grenada Police, is now headquartered in. You see, the nation has a government headed by a prime minister who has absolutely no interest in also being the commissioner of police. The Royal Grenada Police Force can breathe a sigh of relief today that all is well, and that it is well on its way to becoming an institution that can operate independently of political persuasion, with a competent team of esteemed officers at the management level, committed to transforming the operations of the force to bring back its dignity of the years of past commissioners who were allowed to operate independently of political gerrymandering. We all have to stand by to cooperate and, of course, commend our men and women of our local security forces to engender in them that spirit of appreciation for their hard work to stand in the gap for all of us when it comes to the security of our nation. You see, just recently, someone sent me a clip of a big, ripe, old man who constantly behaves like an errant little boy, whose culture it is to always slander people that he does not like and whom he knows work on the opposite side of him because they don't like him too. You see, the errant little boyish fella, even though he is nearing the accomplishment of 80 years on top the earth, is none other than Tropical Trump, whose insistence on holding on while featuring himself regularly in spite of relinquishing the positions of political leader of the national, hear me now, nasty party and the leader of the opposition in the lower house of parliament to someone he believes he can take it back from anytime. You see, of course, we saw what happened to yet another of his attempts to slander under the guise of the People's Parliament when God said, "Man, enough is enough, man. You must take a seat here tonight," which saw him blacking out at the podium, which he had already infested with lies of all sorts. This evil creature must have been embarrassed to see how powerful karma really is, to maim him in his tracks for everyone to see, thus making a public spectacle of him. You see, after recovering, he's on record now as telling the young woman on his Mama Guy and Papi Show podcast that he received calls from other prime ministers inquiring into his well-being, foremost among them, Mia Mottley of Barbados. He complained about not hearing from our local prime minister, the decent Mitchell that is, or anyone of any level within the National Democratic Congress, the NDC. He, like all of us, ought not be surprised by that at all. After this idiot continues to say all sorts of nasty things that he says about Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell and other members of his team, how could he expect anything other than that which he received publicly on Facebook and wherever else? Folks, some people are worth ignoring, and Tropical Trump is at the top of that list. So you see how his fear of exclusion breeds in him desperation? If any of you believe this chronic liar, when he said prime ministers called him, "I have a lovely piece of beachfront land that I would like to sell you at premium price at Grande Town." Let's equate the two, because you know this man is king liar. The status-starved nature of this idiot will have him come to you again with his starchy mouth, talking slowly as if to deliberately fool you again, the unsuspecting masses who are known to hardly pay attention. Not this time, folks. Pay attention, and as long as I'm alive, I will help you pay attention. You see, this brings us to reminding you of our topic for today. Fear of exclusion breeds desperation. We are seeing too many people with a need to fit in tolerate nonsense from others just to be included. I have never had any tolerance for that. When this apple fell from the tree of my mother, never rolled, as she instilled in her children values that ran contrary to wanting to fit in. Lydia, couldn't you attest to that? Values that I have been living for all of my adult life. In fact, when the following biblical prose is used, train up a child the way he should go, and when he grows old, he will never depart from it. It simply means that those foundation values will always be returned to when that said child temporarily veers off course during maturing years, and having discovered nothing desirable outside there, he will return to them. He will always return to what was originally poured into him during his formative years of his upbringing. And that is what that biblical prose means. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he grows old, he will never depart from it. Grenada, folks, I want to remind you, is a great place, and there is greatness within every Grenadian. But do not let fear of exclusion breed in you desperation. We take a break here and we come back We have a lot more where this came from. So stay tuned. Remember what I told you. Come on, hit that share button. Tag your friends. This is instructive today. And don't forget, I still have a perspective on the Nigerian issue. So stay tuned.
Want to stay informed, get educated, and feel empowered? Stay tuned where information is power.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
This is EDDIE-FICATION, made possible by the efforts of the Center for Democracy and Good Governance, CDGG. The strength of views and opinions expressed during EDDIE-FICATION are not necessarily a reflection or representation of the sponsors and/or affiliates of this program.
You're tuned to Eddie Frederick, where information is power.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
Wonderful, folks. Wonderful. And of course, for those of you just joining us, I want to welcome you. What a plum pleasing pleasure it is to have you in the room. We've been getting some early April showers, haven't we? And we should be grateful for that, simply because if we didn't get those showers all week, this gone week there, and it looks like it's starting, this new week is starting like that again, we would have had a real protracted dry season, which I don't think we could have afforded. So we have to thank God for his small mercies, because we really and truly could have done with the rain. So don't be too upset that it's raining on the outside, or, intermittently, but let's be grateful. Let's be grateful, folks. So welcome back. You see, the fear of exclusion can breed desperation in certain individuals, because human beings really are inherently social creatures. For too many of us, our survival, self-worth, and even mental well-being are too deeply tied to belonging to something or somewhere. When people perceive a threat of being left out, marginalized, or abandoned, they may react with extreme anxiety, aggression, and even irrational behavior. Many people get very upset when they heard you had a party, for instance, and that they were not invited. You see the big opinion they have of themselves? Some of them go to the extent of lashing out. That is what you call low self-esteem and a total lack of self-confidence. Such people do not know their goddamn place. That's what it is. I have had people reach out to me to pass off complaints in the direction, like if it's a joke then, just because they are seeking inclusion from whatever little gathering I may have from time to time. But here's why this happens and how it manifests. You see, in our evolutionary roots, our very survival depends on belonging. Humans evolved in tribes. Exclusion meant vulnerability to predators, starvation, or even death. Fear of rejection triggers primal survival instincts, leading to desperate attempts to stay in the group at all cost. Why has this evolved into the material realm? You see, as a people, too many of us have lost our human moorings and allowed the evolutionary roots to be diluted to the point where it is not about the ultimate survival anymore, but how we go look if we were excluded from social activities where all the who is who are in attendance. Why we not there too? You see, there's also psychological needs, the pain of social rejection. Studies show that social rejection, folks, activates the same brain regions as physical pain. People who fear exclusion may overconform. What do I mean by that? They may adopt extreme beliefs or behaviors just to fit in. You are not a liar, you know, but you start to lie just to fit in with the liars so you can belong. You lie even though you know you are lying and the lies are not convincing because you are a novice at lying. But if you are paid and you cannot do without the kakada because you have to keep up appearances, you are bound to lie to fit in. You lash out, folks. You attack outsiders to prove loyalty to your group. Even if at every turn you make a complete and utter fool of yourself. You even become clingy or obsessive in relationships or even in workplaces or work assignments. This happens to people who can be considered losers and failures. And upon realizing that retirement is approaching, that's the other end of life now, and time past cannot be regained, desperation caused such people to obsess with their subject matter to prove that they are in all the way. You see, in societies where resources such as jobs, housing, healthcare depend on social connections, exclusion can mean poverty or even ruin. An idiot tolerates any assignment from a once abusive boss man because the kakada they are paid today, they cannot do without because it could mean homelessness and the inability to look like the Joneses. You see, a great talent will cling to a toxic environment as long as the money is running to keep them from impending destitution while they manifest their own toxicity. Too many people around us suffer from identity crisis. You can see in their body language they are saying to themselves at each moment in their life, if I am excluded, would anyone know that I even exist? After all, I am the best at what I do, and it is important that people recognize me for it. That is why we must exercise consistent, disciplined action so we can continue to gain momentum and traction in what we are good at, so no one will have the opportunity to ignore us. But when we stretch out to other areas on the strength of our progress in our passion, we must lose our way. You see, this is like an annoying spirit who is accepted on radio, appearing on television, where that annoying spirit bears it all for all of us to see. That is why the saying was developed, you know, he or she has a great face for radio. Well, stay on radio, because when you expose yourself on TV, we will see your energy, your vibes, and your frequency. For some, identity is tied to a group or a job, religious, political, ethnic, or even online communities. When threatened with exclusion, such people radicalize. They join extremist groups to regain belonging, not even afraid that there would be people who remember them maligning and otherwise talking ill of that said group or leaders of that group not so long ago. Self-harm or self-sabotage, women staying in an abusive relationship or setting up with a rejected group just to feel a sense of belonging in order to avoid loneliness. But there's also social media and modern amplification of the need to fit in at all costs through lashing out. The digital life creates constant comparison, folks. Algorithms reward engagement. But you know what algorithms do too? They punish invisibility. Fear of missing out. That's another problem that such people who fear being excluded and end up being desperate. You see some of them obsessively posting just for validation, while going to the extreme to call others who might be their subject odd names, which are perfectly ascribable to they themselves in their effort to deflect. Then you see extreme conformity, viral trends, risky challenges. But what about online harassment? If I attack the out group, my tribe will accept me, while of course making a total nuisance of themselves because they don't have their fingers on the pulse to realize what they're selling, people not buying in the main. You see, there's also this thing called power imbalances, when exclusion is weaponized in toxic families, groups, cults, or even authoritarian systems. Leaders deliberately foster fear of exclusion to control members. This creates desperate compliance. If I question the leader, I might be shunned. If I don't follow the rules, I'll lose everything. So let me follow the rules, you're here? Folks, why some people react more desperately than others? You see, there's this thing called attachment style. Anxious or insecure attachment makes rejection feel catastrophic. And nobody wants that catastrophe in their life. Rejection, joke you're making. What about past trauma? Previous abandonment? For example, maybe childhood neglect heightens sensitivity. Lack of alternatives, no safety net, which equals to what? More desperation, because they have to hook on to that particular outpost because they see it as the last bastion, the last area or last stronghold for their own survival. So they have to prove loyalty to that so that they can fit in and remain in. You see, too many of these people want to be, and their personal record can be found wanting in many cases. In the real world, there are some serious consequences. You see, political extremism, people join hate groups to escape social isolation, especially when they are already known to be flawed characters that have been shunned by so many quarters already. And in small societies like ours, they run out of options. Unhealthy relationships, staying close to these toxic groups, knowing that there are not many options left for them in order to avoid abject loneliness. What about economic or financial loyalty? Such goons endure exploitation, fearing steady income loss at this last desperate stage in their lives. Scams and exploitation. Vulnerable people fall for cults or pyramid schemes, promising, of course, community. And because this has become the last bastion for them, because they're running out of time now, because we all are running out of life. But they, more than others, when they count on what has gone and they realize zero, and they don't have much time to add properly to that zero, they hitch their wagons to anything. They become volcanic. They become dangerous, folks, because they have nothing to lose. How do we mitigate this desperation? You see, we have to build self-worth beyond group validation. Self-worth. But in order to do so, if you're already a damaged character, therapy might help. You may want to even develop some hobbies, healthy hobbies. And you may want to revisit, if you have, your personal goals. And if you don't, you may want to take some guidance to establish some. You may want to create an inclusive safety nets, community support, universal basic services. You might want to encourage critical thinking so people don't blindly follow toxic groups. You need to be a critical thinker so you don't become so desperate that you're following anything just to hear cha-ching. You want to reduce structural dependencies. So you want to adopt the thinking and the policy and the philosophy. Fair labor for fair wage. You see, I have a final thought on that particular issue here. You see, fear of exclusion doesn't just cause sadness, It can trigger existential panic. The more isolated or unequal a society becomes, the more desperately people will cling to any form of belonging, even if it is harmful, as long as they could hear cha-ching in the end. Understanding this helps explain everything from gang violence to internet radicalization and how to prevent it. In Grenada, like many small, close-knit societies, the fear of exclusion cuts especially deep because of the island's social, economic, and cultural dynamics. This fear often breeds desperation, manifesting in conformity, silent suffering, or even self-sabotage. But here's why it is so potent and how it plays out locally. You see that village mentality? Everybody knows everybody. Grenada's small population of just over 100,000 means social reputation is everything for the many who care what others think of them. Gossip travels fast. Being ostracized can mean losing job opportunities, friendships, or even community support. But when gossip is based on criminal records, which can be found in our registry, regardless of what provision anyone may have used to have their crime or whatever the criminal record expunged, it is easy to still see the conviction, especially when one pleads guilty. You see the result? People suppress dissent, tolerate toxic relationships, or even cling to harmful norms, staying in abusive marriages or other forms of relationships to avoid stigma. What about economic dependence on social networks? Jobs, housing, and favors often rely on who you know, not just what you know. A young professional stays silent about workplace exploitation. Why? Fears blacklisting. A vendor avoids criticizing local policies. Why? Worried that customers will boycott them. No safety net. Exclusion can mean financial ruin, folks. But there's also cultural and religious expectations. Strong church influence and traditional values equate conformity with morality. Deviating risks family shame or even exile. The result, you see, many live double lives, desperate to fit in while feeling internally isolated. But we also have to deal with the migration and brain drain. You see, many ambitious Grenadians have left for the US, UK, or even Canada, fracturing families. Those left behind may feel abandoned, amplifying fear of losing remaining ties. Returnees sometimes face resentment. You think you're better than us, forcing them to downplay their own success. I don't know why. But then there's this political and tribal loyalties. Grenada's history of political turmoil, example, the revolution, partisan divides, taught many that disloyalty equals danger. Even today, criticizing a party or leader can mean social exile from affiliated groups, more so one than the other. This can also mean total exile from being able to make a living in the country of one's birth. Well, that was going on here between 1995 and 2022. So many people can relate to this as their experiences reflect this under the hands of Satan's grandson for the life of his rulership. And some people have the gall to wonder why there is hardly any sympathy for Satan's grandson in his current time of utter disgrace. But what about the crab in a barrel syndrome? When one person tries to rise through education or even wealth, others pull them back, often unconsciously, just to maintain group balance. People self-sabotage, folks, to avoid standing out, perpetuating what? Cycles of lack. For some reason, too many of us believe struggle and lack are noble. We think they bring special rewards, or that the God force is pleased with us when we struggle and lack. Struggling people have so much to do and say about the things they are struggling with that they hardly have time to get anything done. Struggling people know how to struggle well. We see them every day all around us. They know what to wear, where to go, and how to behave in a way that will undoubtedly create more struggle. Struggling people impose conditions, restrictions, and even expectations upon themselves, because it is easier to struggle doing nothing than it is to bring up and use the creative forces within us. You see, struggling people love to sacrifice in the name of the struggle. They sacrifice themselves, they sacrifice their families, and if you're around and you're too close, you better be careful, because they will sacrifice you too. But God does not ask us to struggle. What are we told? Come up to me, all ye that labor, and I will give you rest. So the next time you try to rise and others attempt to push you back down, do not resort to self-sabotage to avoid standing out and thus perpetuate this cycle of lack. Hear me now. Hell no. Grenada is truly a great place. There is greatness within every one of us as Grenadians. Do not fear being excluded, for fear that you will breed desperation within yourself, and you will manifest that desperation for all to see. We're seeing too many people in Grenada manifesting desperation day in, day out. Let's take a little break and we'll come right back with some more.
Want to stay informed, get educated, and feel empowered? Stay tuned where information is power.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
This is EDDIE-FICATION, made possible by the efforts of the Center for Democracy and Good Governance, CDGG. The strength of views and opinions expressed during EDDIE-FICATION are not necessarily a reflection or representation of the sponsors and/or affiliates of this program.
You're tuned to Eddie Frederick, where information is power.
Wonderful, folks, wonderful. And we come right back with some more fire. This is our third segment, which is the penultimate segment. So we're coming up to a close. Come on. Remember, if you're just coming into the room, remember to hit that share button. Let's get some more people in the room. Now, how this desperation shows up in Grenada. You have what is called silent compliance, enduring workplace abuse, corrupt practices, or even domestic violence to avoid rocking the boat. I have always been known to love to rock the boat. Then you have performative conformity, pretending to agree with religious and political views while privately disagreeing. Performative conformity. Hypocrisy, in other words, folks. What about self-denial? Rejecting opportunities, studying abroad. Example, to avoid jealousy or accusations of forgetting your roots. Rubbish. Gossip as control. Attacking those who break norms to reinforce group boundaries. You see, in breaking the cycle, we have to learn how to build a self that doesn't fear exclusion, because you know who you are. You are secure in yourself. We have to seek tribes that uplift, not police us. Example, entrepreneurial networks, NGOs, art collectives. We have to seek financial independence, folks. We must get ourselves married to skills like digital work or even agriculture to reduce reliance on local favor trading. Because people who do you favors, they talk. They tell people, so they expose you as a dependent. We have to change our own narrative, folks. We have to start saying to ourselves, I'd rather be alone than accepted for a lie. My growth inspires others, even if they resist now. You see, we have to leverage Grenada's strengths, the collective strength of Grenada, the diaspora, tourism, and global Grenadian pride mean what? That you can belong beyond your parochial villages or even the parish. Put that in your pipe and smoke it, folks. You see, Therapy and mentorship, don't underestimate the power of those two. We have to learn to process inherited trauma, slavery, colonialism, revolution, how we were brought up, that fuels fear of abandonment. You see this Grenadian paradox, love of community versus fear of it? Grenadians are famously warm and communal. Yet this same closeness can breed contempt and even control. The antidote isn't rejecting community, but building an unshakable self within it. As a Grenadian elder once told me, if you wait for the crowd to clap for you in Grenada, you will never move. Walk first. The applause will come later. The idea that you cannot feel lonely if the person you're alone with is satisfactory, or if you enjoy the company of the person you're alone with, is often attributed to poet Charles Bukowski. That idea suggests that true loneliness stems from dissatisfaction with oneself, not just physical solitude. To avoid this existential loneliness, you must build a self that is resilient, authentic, and fulfilling on its own terms. Here's how to cultivate that inner wholeness, folks. Ask yourself hard questions. You must develop self-awareness. What do I truly value? Not what society or family expects of me. To hell with both of them. What do I truly value? And you must answer honestly. And the same society and your family will be happy with the results. Once you put legs under the answer and you make it happen. When do I feel most alive? Identify your passions, folks. Not your goddamn distractions. Your passions. The things that do something for you. The thing that make you tick, so to speak. We must also journal, meditate, or seek therapy to untangle conditional beliefs from your authentic self. We have to learn to cultivate self-sufficiency. Learn to enjoy solitude, not as emptiness, but as a space for reflection and creativity. Practice doing things alone, eating out, traveling, attending events, and you will see how you don't need external validation. Build skills that make you proud, folks. Go and learn to cook, man. Go and learn to write. Go and learn to code. And go and do some fitness. Those things will help you foster independence. But you must also define your own worth. Stop outsourcing validation. Stop looking for likes, praise, and social status, because these things are fleeting. Create internal metrics for success. Did I act with integrity today? Did I learn something meaningful? Was I kind to myself and others? Folks, we have to learn to embrace unpopular choices if they align with our truth. We also have to strengthen emotional resilience. Accept discomfort, folks. Loneliness, boredom, and sadness are signals. They are not failures. Practice self-compassion. Talk to yourself like you would a close friend. Let go of toxic relationships, which a lot of you are surrounded by. Toxic relationships, even if it means temporary loneliness. You know what I say? Better alone than mal accompanied. Engage in meaningful work, folks. Contribute to something larger than yourself. Art, volunteerism, mentoring. Focus on mastery, not just outcomes. The process of growing is fulfilling in itself. Avoid busy as a distraction. Idleness can be productive if it is intentional. You see? Build a relationship with your mind. Let there be oneness now, folks. You remember I told you what spirituality is? That connection with your inner higher consciousness. That is where you build a relationship with your mind. Consume wisdom, not just entertainment. Philosophy, psychology, literature. Stay away from old talk and lolly drain rubbish. Challenge your thoughts. Is this my belief or one I inherited? Silence the inner critic by proving it wrong through action. Folks, we have to learn to embrace impermanence. Accept that no one can complete you. Relationships enhance life, but shouldn't define life. Understand that feelings, even loneliness, they are temporary. They don't define your worth. We have to experience that key shift from I am lonely to I am complete and I share from abundance. I move from I am lonely to I am complete and I share from abundance. You see, when you build a self that is curious, capable, and compassionate, solitude becomes richness, not lack. You'll attract better relationships because you're no longer desperate, just open. I want to share that. I put that here for you to see because I think some of you you register your appreciation for these pearls, these important pearls when I share them, which is very, very important indeed. So you see, I want you to shift from I am lonely to I am complete and I share from abundance. When you build a self that is curious, capable, and compassionate, solitude becomes richness, not lack. You'll attract better relationships because you're no longer desperate. You're just open. As Nietzsche wrote, one must still have chaos in oneself to give birth to a dancing star. You see, your task isn't to avoid loneliness, but rather to become someone whose own company is a gift that you enjoy. Folks, since he is so status-driven and demonstrates at every move that he's always afraid of exclusion, and you will always find him full of desperation, now that status is gone. All this time, his actions interfere with the legacy he wants for himself and have caused them to be mired in incontrovertible ridicule. You see, the legacy of a status-driven leader, like the one we had here for so goddamn long, between 1995 and 2022, for the most part, is complex and multifaceted. Legacy is shaped not only by achievements and status, but also by public perception, historical context, public behavior, poor treatment of people, and the ability to navigate challenges. I want us to spend a little minute exploring how legacy might play out for this individual under these circumstances. The role of status in legacy. You see, status-driven leaders often build their legacies on visible achievements, public recognition, and the ability to project strength and success. When people grow enough balls to walk away from such people's emptiness, they always end up with verses of reproach as follows. After all that I did for you, look at you now, turning your back on me. All the people you hear running their mouth on me, I helped them. They never did anything for me. But look at them now. You see, for Tropical Trump, this might include, as part of his legacy, his efforts to stabilize Grenada's economy, attract foreign investment, and promote tourism. But those things could have been central to his legacy. It is just unfortunate that none of these things were done on the basis of a strong and meaningful philosophy, let alone policy, to develop people in the process. His efforts lacked the maintenance component for meaningful follow-up. Grants from international donor partners that came with accountability were never attractive because his administration could not do what they wanted and as they liked with the funds. Look at the amount of funds we almost lost for the Nawasa project and the repurposing of Fort George, coupled with the relocation of the headquarters of the Royal Grenada Police Force. As a result, efforts towards projects aimed at improving infrastructure, such as roads, schools, and healthcare facilities, did not go far enough to build a case for any strong legacy in these areas. Look at the state of our national health sector as a glaring example of total failure. Yet for all, their inferior mouthpieces want to ascribe blame to the current almost three-year administration for its decrepit state, when the administration of their choice was in office for 23 years and did everything to keep it where it was, while their leader could afford to treat with his medical situations in foreign, telling them every so often he's going for his medical checkup, and they ain't see something wrong with that they had to stay here and get their unchecked down. He gone for his check up and they gone for their unchecked down. Coming back with what? In a box. And he presides over that. You see, as a result, efforts towards projects aimed at improving infrastructure, such as roads, schools, and healthcare facilities, did not go far enough. They just couldn't. Political longevity. You see, serving as Prime Minister for over 2 decades is a significant achievement in itself that no one can deny, demonstrating political skill and resilience, and an awful ability to stymie people's growth, and hence was able to hold them under his spell with deprivation in education, so they cannot think for themselves, while they become qualified enough to be permanently placed on his vote farm to win election after election for him. Look at how he mangled the entire public service by positioning point people to do his biddings and not the biddings of the country. Look at how he placed people in leading positions within the security forces to facilitate his way of doing things, most of which were outside the law. That is why if you surf the net and you go to wrongthings.com, all you should see is he and his organization. That is precisely why now, as status has been removed from him, it is easy to present the fact, which serves to completely undermine him and expose the shallowness of his so-called achievements, because they can now be looked at through a more critical lens. You see, folks, the impact of ridicule and controversy. Ridicule and controversy can significantly alter public perception of a leader's legacy. For Tropical Trump, this might involve total erosion of credibility. Ridicule can undermine the respect and authority this leader ought to command, making it harder for his achievements to be taken seriously. Polarization of public opinion. Controversies can divide public opinion, with a shallow many defending their leaders' accomplishment. These shallow many defending their leaders' accomplishments, and many others focusing on his flaws, his several flaws. You see, distraction from achievements, folks. Negative attention can overshadow positive contributions, leading to a legacy defined more by scandal than by any modicum of real, genuine success. We see several factors will determine how Tropical Trump's legacy is ultimately remembered. Nature of the ridicule and controversy, severity by. The scale and impact of the controversy will play a major role. Minor issues may fade over time, while major scandals could dominate his legacy. Interestingly, people vehemently opposed to him are not allowing any major or minor to fade. You see, the disgraceful manner in which Tropical Trump handles ridicule and controversy has served to shape public perception in the most negative of ways. His responses are incendiary, with him descending to the abyss of hell, using language that is unbecoming of his so-called status, proving how characterless he has always been. And hence, he ain't good, and he ain't good long is proved to be absolutely correct of him. That's sad, folks. But there's also a historical perspective. You see, time for normal people, over time, the intensity of ridicule may fade. This is not to be for Tropical Trump. Historical evaluation will always focus more on long-term impacts, that is, wajong behavior and tendency towards vengeance have had on people and the nation as a whole. Comparative analysis, Tropical Trump's legacy will be assessed in comparison to other leaders and the broader context of Grenada's history. You see, depending on how these factors play out, Tropical Trump's legacy could take on a more tarnished context. There is no doubt that the ridicule and controversy will continue to overshadow his achievements, thus making his legacy more negative. For example, his tenure may be remembered primarily for the controversies, with his achievements downplayed or even forgotten. He will for sure be seen as a divisive leader with clear-cut derogatory opinions about his impact. As Grenada's history unfolds, Tropical Trump's legacy may be interpreted with different aspects emphasized over time, as his impact on the wider society has been so devastating in the main. You see, Tropical Trump's situation offers broader lessons for status-driven leaders. Vulnerability of status. Relying too heavily on status can be risky, as it is often fragile and subject to external factors. But authenticity, folks, has its importance. Leaders who prioritize genuine service over status are more likely to build lasting positive legacies. How leaders handle ridicule and controversy can significantly impact their legacy, highlighting the importance of grace, accountability, and resilience. Tropical Trump's legacy is already shaped by a combination of his limited achievements, the nature of the consistent ridicule he faces, and how he responds to these perceptions. While status-driven leadership can bring significant accomplishments, it also carries risks, particularly when status is self-undermined by greed and vengeance. Ultimately, none of us with a modicum of sense and tendency towards values could ever see Tropical Trump's legacy being able to reflect a balance between his limited contributions to the people and unlimited contributions to himself. With his many controversies, offering a nuanced and evolving perspective on his tenure as regretfully Grenada's leader for so goddamn long. Folks, Grenada is a great place. Thank God we get rid of that rubbish. There is greatness within every Grenadian. Fear of exclusion does breed desperation indeed. We take a last break here and we come back for a final segment.
Want to stay informed, get educated, and feel empowered? Stay tuned where information is power.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
This is Edification, made possible by the efforts of the Center for Democracy and Good Governance, CDGG. The strength of views and opinions expressed during edification are not necessarily a reflection or representation of the sponsors and/or affiliates of this program.
You're tuned to Eddie Frederick, where information is power.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
Wonderful, folks. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So we come here. Thank you for giving me that little break just now. You know, I heard something like something fell, and I needed to attend to that, because the longer it remained, if that had happened, is the worst it would have been. So I was able to correct that. So we have a lot in store for you in this last segment. I did promise you that the Nigerian issue and offer is going to be part of this topic, and of course it is going to feature. So let's just take it in for what it is worth. Wonderful. Folks, you see, the hot issue recently released and coming from Kenneth Ridgeock's financial crime blog is that Grenada issues a CBI passport to an accused Nigerian woman, for money laundering, who is a fugitive from justice. The personalized scandal-flavored blog is something I will not take seriously insofar as the scandal element is concerned. You see, when the same man published what was alleged to be a private and personalized WhatsApp exchange between Tropical Trump a few years ago, purporting for it to be between Tropical Trump a few years ago, when he was Grenada's maximum leader, I drew the line on this Ridgeock's level. It was wrong then, and what his blog is attempting to do now on a totally different Grenadian leader is also wrong now. Enough on that. For those of you wanting to feel this is an attempt at PR management on this issue, hear me out for a moment. I have had issues with, and I've also taken issue with several one-time close agents of Tropical Trump who found it fit to come to me with stories which they felt were necessary for me to break on Tropical Trump in my heyday as volcanically controversial as I was back then. You see, my thing was and still continues to be, what Sally says about Jane says more about Sally than it says about Jane. things of that sort that you should obviously know to be wrong while you were friends, all of a sudden become wrong now that you fell out and you're not friends anymore? Folks, I've been frank a long time now. It's in my DNA. My immediate response back then is take your garbage elsewhere. And if these people are honest, they would confirm to you my response to them is consistent with how I feel up to today. Because that is how I operate. Just recently, a certain person operating in a professional realm attempted to fill me in on some very personal details on a certain person. I got up from my interaction with that professional, speeched them off, never to return to do business with that person again. Because if that person could do that to that client, to me, what is that person going to do to you in relation to me? Joke you're making. It tells me that's a pattern. That person is no goddamn professional, and I therefore will not be able to do business with them because my information will not be safe. You see, folks, I cannot be teaching people on the issue of professionalism, training them and operating differently, because it is in my DNA to believe the definition of professionalism. It is one's approach to work using knowledge and high standards of conduct. So Rijak in his blog proffered that Nigerian businesswoman and prominent Abuja socialite Aisha Suleiman Achimugi, a citizen of Grenada by way of the Citizenship by Investment Program, is wanted by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, of her homeland, Nigeria, for money laundering and criminal conspiracy. She has been able to evade the Nigerian government's dragnet since the capture, to capture and interrogate her. It is reported that she abruptly fled Nigeria rather than appear before the EFCC. Achimogo is accused of secretly funneling funds to opposition leaders Peter Obi and Atiku Abubakar during the 2023 elections. Rijak's report questions Grenada CIUs for a lack of an effective due diligence investigation in her ability to acquire a citizenship by investment CBI passport, when her involvement in criminal activity would have been exposed. He went on, quote, I personally would like to know how she managed to be allowed to enter the UK if she was a fugitive from justice in Nigeria. Don't border police in the UK check documents? Unquote. A lot is wrong with that, Rijak writes, as if he really believes in the efficacy of Nigerian authorities. When in truth and in fact, if you research his work, you would see little to no respect for any of the many financial institutions in Nigeria, to include the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the EFCC. Miss Ashimugu, at the time of being approved, had no criminal record, nor was she involved in any activity likely to bring Grenada into disrepute. She was only approved having been cleared by the Joint Regional Communication Center, JRCC, and our local Financial Intelligence Unit, the FIU, both of which operate in a climate where there is no government or political override, as had been the norm prior to June 23rd, 2022. They operate totally independent of government interference. Folks, critical thinking dictates to me that anyone with a modicum of sense ought to realize that even in Rijak's blog, the issue of Miss Ashimugu's accusation which led him to refer to her as a fugitive of justice, has to do with her secretly funneling funds to opposition leaders Peter Obi and Atiku Abubakar during the 2023 elections in Nigeria, to use his own terms. This means that she would therefore have loads of local parallels here in Grenada, who were known to funnel funds to the ruling parasitic oligarchy for years, between 1995 and 2022 for the most part. Could you imagine the current president of Nigeria is the same man whose university qualifications came into sharp question? As of June 2024, the current president of Nigeria is Bola Ahmed Tinubu. He was inaugurated on May 29th, 2023, after winning the presidential election held in February of 2023. A little background, folks, is very important. Bola Ahmed Tinubu has faced controversies and legal challenges regarding his academic credentials, particularly his degree from the Chicago State University, CSU, in the United States. Let's look at some key points. Key points of controversy by the opposition that Ms. Achimugu had been accused of funneling financial support to. Atiku Abubakar's legal challenge 2023 and 2023. In other words, it's more than one challenge, so different times of 2023. During and after the 2023 presidential election, Atiku Abubakar, Tinubu's main opponent, filed lawsuits questioning the authenticity of Tinubu's Chicago State University CSU diploma. Atiku obtained a U.S. court order to release Tinubu's academic records from the CSU. Chicago State University's response: they confirmed that Tinubu attended the university and graduated in 1979. Full stop. It's quite obvious that they were not interested in being embroiled any further. However, the university stated that it could not authenticate the diploma certificate that Tinubu had submitted to Nigeria's electoral body, INEC, citing that it was a replacement document and not the original. The Chicago State University also noted discrepancies in the gender designation on some of Tinubu's records. Hello? Now for Tinubu's defense. His legal team argued that the controversy was politically motivated. They maintained that he legitimately attended and graduated from CSU, regardless of clerical errors in record keeping. But what was the outcome? Nigerian courts dismissed the cases challenging his qualifications, ruling that they lacked sufficient evidence to nullify Tinubu's election. The controversy remains a topic of debate among opposition figures and critics, who are not allowing it to die, much to the national ridicule and constant discredit of the elected president, Tinubu. You see, folks, fluid research reveals that the infestation of corruption in Nigeria, which is somewhat normalized, provides a platform for this vituperation against Ms. Achimugu, especially as she found herself on the wrong side of winning the presidential elections after helping to fund opposition forces. You see, to join a known corrupt state in accusing anyone of corruption, money laundering, and other criminal activities relating to finances is to take too simple an approach without being interested in digging deeper for facts. It is quite obvious that if a supposed financial support for the presidential candidate lost the elections, especially with that serious accusation consistently looming over the head of the winning candidate, now installed president, fully installed, what will likely be the fallout for Ms. Ashimogu? We have to understand that Atiku Abubakar, Tinubu's main opponent, is not giving up. He's not giving up the campaign against the current president, which is keeping his name immersed in controversy and dirt for likely fraud. You see, so Ms. Achimogu is widely suspected of continuing to fund Abubakar. True or false, the dragnet to quell this raging controversy, which has many in the nation looking at Tinubu with eyes of doubt when it comes to his credibility and very character, continues. To therefore refer to Ms. Achimogu in the ways we are seeing all over social media by many who are known in local circles to be challenged in the area of critical thinking is to follow a red herring that may very well lead to nowhere significant in the scheme of things. This is not any attempt to deliberately defend anyone, inasmuch as it is my duty to provide the facts that many are too lazy to seek, find, and share, even though they hold in their hand a device called a smart device, that they too can have access to all the information. You see, the same source of information that usually leads to expanded knowledge available to me is also available to all who want to parade on this matter, and one or two of whom our court system may very well have record of their names attached to matters which too many have already forgotten. You see, whether the substance of our accusation is found to be true or not, Ms. Achimogu, at the time of being approved, had no criminal record, nor was she involved in any activity likely to bring Grenada into disrepute. And chances are she's not involved in anything except that of funding the opposition, which continues to discredit the elected president. You see, we have to remember, she was only approved having been cleared by the Joint Regional Communication Center. It's not based in Grenada. And by our local independently operated FIU. Folks, we have seen and witnessed reprisals and vengeance, which ended in total marginalization of anyone who dared to finance the main opposition, whether real or perceived, over the years, that we do not operate any different from our corrupt brothers and sisters of many nations in the motherland, Nigeria chief among them. You see, it makes me sick to my stomach to be around phony people. People who we all know do good and do good long. All apart, of course, from tropical Trump, the element they support avariciously. But because they feel they go to church and were baptized, and the only thing that changed is that they went into the water a dry devil and they came out a wet devil, they feel they're qualified to project their nastiness of their idol on others. Do you know how much effort it takes to be around phony people? I would rather be hated for who I am than loved for what I am not. It takes too much effort to be phony. Too many of you have to have friends because you too are phony. You know how hard it is to keep us, or to keep up rather, a friendship trying to be phony? Oh, Jesus. There's a lot of work, you know, folks. If they can't love you for you, you got to move on. If they can't love you for you, They are phony. Don't allow them to absorb you so you become one of them to please them. Phony people are everywhere. But when we see them in the church regularly, those are the ones who cause many people watching in from the outside to want to have nothing to do with God. This is not because they do not like God, but rather because of the people who say they represent him. How can these people who say they are Christians and go to church regularly convince anyone to come to God when all they show the outside world is phoniness, fakeness, and leaves without fruit? That is why we need to be more impressed with character than with talent. Too many of us are too impressed with oratory and with gifting that you don't even care that you are following, liking, loving, supporting leaves without fruit. As usual, I don't care if this offends anyone, but you got to start living what you profess and stop being phony. Because at the end of the day, people meet you before they meet you. Your actions say it all. While your righteous words are totally ignored. Remember, we all emit vibes, energy, and frequency. And whatever you receive from others have something to do with either reflections of yourself or, once cleansed, things you are compelled to steer clear of. I rest my case, folks. I am in, I am out, and I am gone. Thanks for joining. Continue to share. See you next week at the same time and same place for more extraordinary programming. Until then, stay safe, stay well, remain vigilant, and stay lifted. But remember to stay focused. Don't let distractions rule the roost. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Just type in my name, Edward or Eddie Frederick. Subscribe, like, and share. And be prepared to receive your mental multivitamins as straight up as I deliver them. Toodaloo, folks. Have a great week. As April comes in, let us welcome April. And let us do what we must to stand in the gap for good things in Grenada. Because God help us all. We have a kind of orangutan kind of people who are so sorry that their entitlement cannot be funded anymore. Their dependency is cut off. And they make up their mind not to work. And as a result, man, is just mud they're slinging left, right, and center. And then we have those again who realize the right side of 50 is much shorter than the left side. And they've wasted so much goddamn time on the left of 50 that they're trying to play catch up. And to prove their loyalty, Jesus, who pays the piper, calls the tune. And it's just rubbish, rubbish, rubbish. Showing up themselves as hired guns. Nothing else. Because such people ain't doing nothing for free. It's sad. It's really sad that we could sacrifice our very being for a mess of pottage. Folks, I can go on and on and on, but it's time for me to go. So blessings to you. Take great care and keep me in your prayers, because between us, folks, I do a lot of that. Not the way those fundamentalists would like it to happen, because I am not religious. I have a tendency towards spirituality, and spirituality can't finish. So it's a constant learning process. And trust me, folks, I am constantly learning. So I'm committed to vibes, energy, and frequency, because I always want to be connected to my inner, higher consciousness. And I invite you to do the same, folks. Have a productive week. See you next week, God willing, for more.
Want to stay informed, get educated, and feel empowered? Stay tuned where information is power.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
This has been Edification, made possible by the efforts of the Center for Democracy and Good Governance, CDGG. The Center for Democracy and Good Governance is a sound organization established to promote and strengthen democracy.
I want the best for my family, so every meal has to be perfect. Every bite has to say, There's no doubt in my mind that the best in frozen meats and vegetables has to come from the Country Cold Store. Hams, turkeys, sausages, beef, pork, chicken. I just don't know my family is in safe hands. Thank you, Country Cold Store, for being there for us for the past 40 years.
There are some interesting specials available at Country Cold Store's Mini Mart while stocks last. Take advantage of these specials as they assist you to stretch your limited funds.
The Country Cold Store, providing the best in frozen meats and vegetables since 1969.
Need a personal integrity booster shot? Your prescription is right here. Tune in with Eddie Frederick every week. Information is power.
Attention all forward-thinking companies. Sure, you can do with a continuous positive boost to your image and impact your bottom line. If you think training is expensive, try not training and you will experience a perpetual downward spiral in patronage on account of increased dissatisfied customers. Take things into your hands and engage the best at motivation and customer care training with a tried and tested track record. Visit www.efrederick.com now and learn how you can change the atmosphere in your business and improve the customer experience for everyone who does business with you. Spice Island Beach Resort and Belmont Estate are two such local entities of world renown that have benefited tremendously from ongoing customer care, social skills, and motivation training. Training changes everything for the better for any business and every team member. Enhance employee performance through increased awareness and passion for the job at hand. Greater potential in your workforce awaits you through engaged, high-energy training that works. Log on now, www.efrederick.com.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.